Washington State Legislature wrapped up the 2023 regular session last month, which was quickly followed by a special session. And now we have a new 2-year budget, as well as numerous policy changes related to housing, healthcare, public safety, and more. We're very fortunate to have with us today 4 of our local legislators to brief us on the session and what it means for our region. So our first speaker, Representative April Connors of the mighty 8th Legislative District, which includes a portion of Benton and Franklin counties. Representative Connors is serving her first term in the legislature and is Assistant Whip for the House Republican Caucus. Her legislative priorities include building more housing for Washington families, increasing access to clean, affordable energy, making communities safer, and supporting Washington's agricultural industry. She serves on the House Housing Committee, where she's Assistant Ranking Member, the Appropriations Committee, the Consumer Protection and Business Committee, and the Labor and Workplace Standards Committee. A lifelong Tri-Citian, Representative Connors is a successful residential real estate agent and holds a Bachelor's of Arts in Communications from Washington State University. Her prior experience includes writing and maintaining city codes as a legal assistant, during which she was involved in a housing case brought to the U.S. Supreme Court. She lives in Kennewick with her husband and their 4 children. Please help me and welcome Representative April Connors.
Good afternoon. It's great to be here. It's great to be a first-time legislator. Great to be back from session. We had a special session. We had to go back to Olympia, so it's nice to be back home. As was mentioned, I do cover all of Richland, half of Kennewick and half of Pasco, both the west portions of those states. I serve with Representative Stephanie Barnard, who had an amazing session this year. She did some great things, got some good bills passed, a great one for Benton County that's going to help with their meeting situation. And then she also, she was also instrumental in starting a nuclear caucus within the State House, which has been very, very well received. Happy to see the nuclear piece on the table from Energy Northwest. As part of the nuclear caucus, she brought in guest speakers. What we're trying to do is have folks get more comfortable with especially small modular nuclear reactors in Washington State so that we can move forward with helping fund and create those, especially here in the Tri-Cities. I also serve with Senator Banky, who is, as most of you know, a professor at Columbia Basin Community College, where he does cybersecurity, and he does a lot of bills about cybersecurity. And when he does those, we usually say, you know, they're really great and blah 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 blah, because we don't quite understand all the smart things that he does. But he did get a couple passed this year. We're super happy to serve with him. He's also on the Important Ways and Means Committee. As noted, I do serve on the House Appropriations Committee. I just got selected to be the assistant ranking member on that committee, so I'm looking forward to helping with the operating budget more, as well as learning more about fiscal policy. The bill that I was most excited to pass this year had to do with wind farms, and our Horse Heaven Hills, as many know, are subject to possibly getting a big selection of wind farms on the top of those hills. So I worked extensively with Tri-City Cares Group, which Paul Crouppen and Pam Minnelli and Dave Sharp approached me in the off session and asked if I would do a bill that would turn the lights off at night. Colorado and North Dakota had already passed bills. So if you go to Walla Walla at night and you see those blinking lights that look like they're aliens coming over the top of the hills, they asked me if I would run a bill that would stop that in Washington State. So I worked together with Representative Clicker and Representative Rude, and we brought a bill forward that was passed by both the House and the Senate, and then just recently signed by the governor, that says any new facility in Washington State, as long as it complies with the Federal Aviation Administration, will have to turn those lights off when aircraft are approaching, and then they'll turn back on after they're safely passed. So if we do end up with those wind farms in the Tri-Cities, hopefully we'll not have to look at the lights all night long. It's also going to be retroactive, going back and helping folks like in Walla Walla and other communities. So excited about that bill. I'm also excited to say that this year we started a hub, which involves the 8th, the 9th, the 15th, and the 16th, and we're able to secure a lot of wins for the Tri-City area. Representative Clicker has been instrumental in putting that together. So what we're trying to do is basically create a Tri-Cities Eastern Washington caucus that is just really trying to do great things for our area, which was instrumental and helped a lot when we were in Olympia this year to make sure we were all on the same page to bring home the same wins this legislative session. This is, as was mentioned, I am a real estate agent. I have been for over 20 years in the Tri-Cities. I have a couple of great tables from my friends from Windermere came to join today to watch me present. So housing has been a top priority for me going into the state legislature, and this year was what they called the year of housing. It was the biggest housing year that they've ever had with housing policy that was passed. Some of the bills were sponsored related to real estate, some related to agency laws. Senator Dozier and I worked on some of those bills together that came out of the State House and State Senate. And then, if you didn't know, Washington State currently ranks last in the United States on the number of housing units per family in the United States. And so it was important that this job got done this year. While I had some mixed feelings on some of the bills that were passed, we are in need of housing right now, and you know, some of the situations that I struggled with is we did a lot of top-down zoning from Olympia this year, where some of the local jurisdictions aren't going to have control over some of the zoning requirements in their specific cities. One of the big bills that passed this year was the missing middle housing bill. That one they've been trying to pass for years through the State House and Senate. It was signed into law by the governor, and effectively what that bill does is it requires cities with populations that are over 25,000 people to allow on new construction lots. They would have to allow at least 2 units per lot, and 4 units if 2 of those were affordable. It also goes back and applies to existing residential neighborhoods in some conditions, where if you took a house down, you could think of like Seattle. If you took a single family house down, you could then put a duplex or a fourplex on it. For cities that are over 75,000, like most of our cities, it will now allow up to 4 units per residential lot. So it is a big change. Each city is going to have to apply to those changes once they redo their next comprehensive plan. There was also an a bill to increase supply of condos and townhomes, which I think could significantly help in Washington State. In the past, a lot of people would not build condos and townhomes because of what's called a right to cure for the developer, and the developers would not have the ability to cure a problem that they had with the buildings, which would cause them not to want to build in Washington State. So that was changed this year, so hopefully that will help, and we will see more condos and townhomes being constructed in the state of Washington. The other big one that passed this year was allowing accessory dwelling units on properties. And most of Tri-Cities already allows accessory dwelling units, but this new law within the state of Washington would allow at least 2 accessory dwelling units per home lot. So that was quite a big change this year. I could get more excited about that bill if we could allow it to go outside of the urban growth boundaries. So if we could tweak the Growth Management Act a little bit and start allowing for those to happen. So that bill was introduced this year to allow it to happen, think outside of our counties, like outside in Benton County, where you could put an accessory dwelling unit, another house on your lot. That bill was introduced this year, did not make it out of committee, and so that is something that I will be working on again next year. And then there was a lot of local permit reforming this year to help speed up permit processes. Again, luckily in the Tri-Cities, we are very well versed and we are pretty quick with our permits, but that's not the same around the state. So hopefully we can help teach the other cities how to do that. What didn't happen this year in housing, which was a little bit disappointing, is we did a lot with what they call the missing middle, which is more like middle class style housing, but we didn't do a whole lot of work on affordable housing. So next session is a priority of mine, being the assistant ranking member on the housing committee, is going to be working on the affordable housing issue. We need houses for our young kids that are coming and graduating out of college. It's too expensive for them to buy. We need houses for our veterans. We need housing for our developmentally disabled community. We need to be working with these organizations more. So that is one thing I'm going to definitely be working on next year, especially as it relates to land trust programs, if you're not familiar with those, and then possibly adding some affordable housing outside of the growth boundaries. Some of the highlights that we had this year for the 8th District, which are very exciting. We did get $7.5 million for PNNL to help with our cities and counties. Bob talked about the transition to clean energy, and we had to be there by 2045. They're going to try to help educate us on getting there and how we're going to do it, which I think is the most important piece, because I think no one's really clear how that's going to happen yet. We did receive $4 million for the Yakima Valley farm workers. They're doing a dental clinic here in the Tri-Cities, which is going to be kind of over by their clinic they have right now by the new Chuck E. Cheese in Kennewick. We did a lot for our military here, $6 million for the National Guard, for vehicle storage buildings and readiness centers. We also I worked with Jet Richardson, I don't know if he's here today or not, and secured almost $800,000 for Habitat for Humanity to help build some houses here. I loved that, Teresa, I love that we did, City of Kennewick needed some money. It wasn't a very sexy project, but they needed to extend some water and sewer lines, and so they brought home over $1 million this year. And then we're also working on the White Bluffs rail replacement system. I don't know if anyone's had the opportunity to see what those those lines look like out in the Port of Benton, but they really need a lot of help. And so we were able to secure some money for them, as well as Pasco soccer fields. One that was near and dear to my heart this year is my kids and family have always been involved in community theater. So Richland Players Theater received $700,000 this year to not only help with the funding to increase the arts for them, but also to help with their renovations that they're wanting to do. There's a new technology resource center that wants to be planned in Tri-Cities for a Martin Luther King facility, and that also received some funding this year. And then one that Representative Barnard was particularly excited about was the My Tri Agriculture Innovation Center, just to start get funding on that, an innovation center for our agricultural community, to start working on all the great things that they do. My family farms, and one of the things that we bought this year was a automatic weeding machine, because when labor costs get really expensive, all of a sudden automation looks like a great thing to do. And so I'm looking forward to getting that Ag Innovation Center started in the Tri-Cities. We are kind of the farm belt here, so it would be a great thing to do. That is kind of a quick wrap up for me. I could go on forever. I just wanted to give you a wrap up on housing. I know that Senator Dozier and representatives and Senator Schoesler and Representative Chandler are going to give you guys additional updates on other things. But if you have any questions at all, I'd be happy to answer them, and looking forward to working on the off session on things that we need in the Tri-Cities. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Connors. And it's now my honor to introduce Senator Mark Schoesler. Senator Schoesler represents the 9th Legislative District, which spans part or all of Adams, Asotin, Columbia, Franklin, Garfield, Lincoln, Spokane, and Whitman counties. Senator Schoesler was elected to the House of Representatives in 1992 and served for 12 years. He then was elected to the Washington State Senate in 2004 and has served 8 years as the Senate Republican leader in the Senate Republican caucus. Senator serves on 2 Senate committees, the Labor and Commerce and Ways and Means. Senator Schoesler is a 5th-generation dryland wheat farmer in Ritzville, the seat of Adams County, on land that his family's been farming since the 1880s. He and his wife Ginger are proud parents of 2 married children, Veronica and Cody, as well as grandparents to a grandson and 2 granddaughters. So please help me and welcome Senator Mark Schoesler.
Well, you know, it's sort of interesting. One day you're elected, and you wake up another day, and you realize you're the most senior member of the entire legislature. I didn't know if I could outlast Jim Honeyford, but I did. And Jim Honeyford was one hell of a mentor and friend to higher education and Eastern Washington. One of the other things I've learned is that the key to political success is brevity. I promise not to use all my allocated time. I think a lot of the projects that Representative Connors talked about were part of the fact that we had a unanimous vote on the capital budget in both chambers. Now, everybody likes to spend money, but we did this so much more responsibly than what the governor's budget did. The governor's budget was going to borrow money from the next biennium to pay today's bills. That doesn't work in any of your businesses very sustainably. So we got there, we went through this, and we got to $100 million in small school repair grants. Real money, real relief. We funded pretty much everything in higher education. There were more than enough local projects for every member to bring home. And we did, I think, probably the best water budget in a long, long time. No matter what, Springwood Ranch up in Kittitas, Walla Walla, the Odessa, on and on, it was a very good water budget. And also we found some time for wastewater out here in Pasco. It's an area in Pasco where, is it in the 9th or is it in the 16th or 15th now? It's always a little confusing, but that was taken care of. And one of the things I looked for as a ranking Republican on the capital budget was we had a guideline for each district for what they could do for projects. And the Tri-Cities Behavioral Health Center was above that level. We had 3 districts that directly benefited, and to some degree the 9th district. So funding that regional center made good sense rather than just trying to include it as a member project. The other area that I think was very, very challenging, whether or not you would vote for it or not, was transportation. The bad news, they keep wanting to study removing our dams. Very, very bad news. I told one of the chairs I'd give it to a bike path before I do that. They wouldn't take me up on the offer. But the good news was the Connell interchange, which positively impacts Franklin and Adams, Grant counties, was funded to move forward. The lanes on Highway 26, if you're part of the Coug Nation, continue their path. And money to match federal grants for bridges over the East Low Canal to facilitate bringing water to Odessa without cutting off the South District from their flows. So those were really big key issues. You thought about it. One of my colleagues said, I can't vote for a budget that studies dam breaching. I respect my colleague completely. I had a tough choice, with Connell, interchange, Highway 26, do you or don't you? But in the end, I did vote for it. The operating budget, it's balanced, yes, but no, it isn't. And I'll explain it this way. It meets the basic requirements, but have you ever tried to eliminate an entitlement or a new government program? Ronald Reagan said the closest thing to eternal life is a government program, and after 31 years, he's right. So that's a problem. Yet again, studying dam breaching. Somebody's making a heck of a lot of money out of studying dam breaching when everybody in this room understands the inherent benefits. When Energy Northwest is refueling, the Snake River dams by themselves offset that loss of baseload power completely and totally, zero carbon. We're not buying it from anybody out of state. Hell of a deal, in my opinion. Tax relief, we had a positive budget. Money was there, no doubt. If you cross the state line into Idaho, which my district borders, they have an annual debate over which tax to cut. In Washington is which tax does Jay Inslee want to raise? Was it the real estate excise tax? Was it a new wealth tax? Several options, or property taxes. They're not high enough, we could raise those. Meanwhile, our neighbors seem to argue just the opposite. Another area that was very troubling that didn't make the budget anybody that's buying fuel today is probably paying about 60 cents a gallon under cap and tax for diesel. Probably about 50 cents for gasoline. But in the original cap and trade proposal, ag diesel was exempt, including haulers. Our barges on this river were exempt. Our short line rail, our fishing fleet, maritime, and our ag propane. They have not figured out in 6 months how to refund that. And we're still struggling for smaller producers how to not pay the money and worry about getting their back. Really a problem. To have it ignored and turned into a DOE study really doesn't solve the problem. So there was ample reasons why, and one that hits the 9th District very close to home. When Coyote Ridge Penitentiary was expanded, there was supposed to be impact money. I met with the city, brought the staff in, had it all figured out. Not one darn dime has gone back to Connell. But it gets worse. Our friends and neighbors that are EMTs in Connell spend all their time servicing the prison. And they get Medicaid back to take people the farthest distance they can. So my colleague, Representative Schmidt, got money in the capital budget to try and help Connell District. Didn't make the final budget. If you represent Connell, go talk to your friends up there and see what they think of that, and you'll know you had a pretty good reason right there for not voting for it. The other thing about this session, I defy you to find something, a pro-business, pro-employer bill. The bar is so low, it doesn't take much. Looking outward a little bit, the long-term care tax takes effect July 1. And boy, is it going to be fun to watch. I had a physician who has a very large medical practice in a city outside of the Tri-Cities. They didn't get their paperwork in for 110 employees. Or it could be the farmer that said, I've had long-term care forever, but I didn't get it in time. Then all of the unsuspecting people that are going to start paying this, July 1, look out. And as I work with Senator King, who the ranking on labor, 0.058 will never last. It cannot. The numbers are cooked. It will not work. So be prepared for whoever does your books and your employees. When that first July paycheck comes, look out. Personal note, I think one of the things I'd worked on for a long time was a depreciation account for our schools. And I had to make a choice, take a slimmed down bill of districts under 1,500 or no lockbox. I can tell you I never met a school district that didn't like that idea of a secure lockbox that couldn't go to new programs or salaries just to pay cash for their improvements to their schools and maintenance, because most important, it was voluntary. Ask the Pasco School District, voluntary plan, save money, pay cash for improvements, your superintendent loves it. They're denied that because the teachers' union said we can't have money that's not available to bargain for. But yet we can let our schools deteriorate because we don't have any money. Didn't make sense, but at the end of the day, it was a tough decision. Take half a loaf or no loaf, and I took the half a loaf and went home. I think I'll pass on the information on the Blake bill, a special session, police pursuit, because I've got two more well-qualified colleagues to follow me, and they can touch that really well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Schoesler. And it's now my pleasure to introduce Representative Bruce Chandler. Representative Chandler is serving his 13th term representing the 15th District, which is located in East Yakima County. Bruce focuses on policies promoting water storage, economic growth, and the safety of Washington's families. He currently is the assistant ranking Republican on the House Agricultural and Natural Resources Committee and has served as a lead Republican on the committee in the past. In 2013, he was chosen by his colleagues to be the budget leader for House Republicans and was the ranking Republican on the Appropriations Committee through 2018. He continues to serve on the Budget Committee and is also serving on the Post-Secondary Education and Workforce Committee. He serves in the Pacific Northwest Economic Region Delegate Council and is a former member of the Board of Directors for the State Agricultural and Rural Leaders Association. Representative Chandler has 3 grown children and more than 30 years of experience in the fruit industry. He currently owns and operates a commercial fruit orchard near Granger. Please help me welcome Representative Bruce Chandler.
Thank you very much. I do have to say that there's a little qualification as far as being a fruit grower, and that is that my kids get a kick out of it, and they think it's the only thing I could do. And of course, when they were younger, they got to do it all. But now that they're adults, they actually are out raising a family and having a career. But what moves me the most about it is that, and it's not just my family, but in the Yakima Valley, more than 70% of the students who graduate from schools, both private and public, in the Yakima Valley, always come back when they get married and when they get pregnant. And the town, I live in Zilla, or outside of Zilla. They don't let me in Zilla, but in the entire town comes, people who hadn't been in their hometown for 10, 12 years, they show up just to say that they're glad to see that people still come there and come home. And I believe that that's, to me, one of the most powerful messages that the Yakima Valley and that all of Central Washington really sends to people outside. And that is that this is a place to have a home, this is a place to have a life. And I think that we've made a lot of progress over the last few years, and I'm excited about the future. I was a bit surprised that we were going to, in the 15th district, end up representing what is, in many ways, economically the largest region in Central Washington. I was really grateful, and I'm proud to represent you people. And I believe that there are a lot of times when you demonstrate things that other people just refuse to believe work. And then all of a sudden, you have kids going to school here and out on the project. And that really is probably, that could be, I think, one of the best high schools in particular in the entire state. And the stuff they do there and the way the excitement the kids have there. I've been fortunate enough to be able to go out there from time to time. And I don't dare answer a single question because I know I'll be wrong and be corrected. But it is a real treasure. And one that I keep an eye on in the Appropriations Committee and stuff all the time, just because a large portion of Yakima County kids are now going there, and I think that they are going to have a tremendous potential to continue to change and perfect all the treasure that we have here in Central Washington. I spend a lot of time in the legislature working on water issues, and it's been a very educational, very exciting time, and it's gotten to the point where we work on issues in northern Puget Sound and down by Portland and Vancouver and all sorts of areas where people are having trouble managing water. And I think it's been a great experience for me because I've been able to see an issue that displays itself statewide, and a lot of times we don't recognize that until it's too late. But I think we are way ahead of a lot of other states and a lot of other parts of the country, and it's going to be more and more important as the years go on. I also, it's not exactly a committee assignment, but I was asked by my leadership, and as Mark can tell you, when leadership asks you to do something, there's only one answer, and that's yes. And this happens to be a committee that oversees and advises the public defense department of the legal division in the executive branch, and I found that to be quite an experience because I think that there is very little more important than someone being allowed to defend themselves, and we live in an era where that is happening more and more to people who are not yet 20 years old, and neither they nor their family really know quite what to do. But we've been able to work through a lot of issues, and I am very optimistic for the future. And that's something that I never thought about until our leader told me that I was going to apply for that, whether I did it or he did it. And my family has been here since about the 1880s, and actually they lived in the northern part of Puget Sound. But my great-grandfather, who was from Britain in Ireland, and his brother, they came here, and they started a construction company. Their ability was construction, and they, among other things, built the Capitol building in Olympia. And they did it almost entirely with people who came from out of state to work with the labor. But I think that that's something I keep in mind, and I talk to my grandkids about, because you have to believe before you can accomplish anything. And Washington State is a place that people come because they believe that it's a better place. They don't know, but they believe in it because they've seen the results in all of us who have invested our lives here. And so that's what drives me in the legislature. And this year it was particularly difficult because, first of all, one of the priorities was to spend more money than ever before. And then the other thing was we were going to tax more than ever before. And that just wasn't really the way that a lot of us thought we should spend our winter vacation. So I do believe that we need to be aware as we go forward in the future that there's going to be a little more pressure on working people than there has been for a long, long time. And I do believe that we can prevail and that we can continue to provide opportunities for families, and I'm excited about that. I've got 6 grandchildren. They 3 of them live just outside of the southwest corner of the state, and I have 3 that live in Yakima County, and their parents don't expect that they'll ever leave Yakima County, because when they get ready to retire, they're going to want some help. But I think that I never intended to be in politics, and there was a neighbor, and her name was Barb Lisk, and she said, yes, you're going to be, because I'm leaving, and so you're going to take it. And after about 6 months, she did finally convince me. I would ask that each and every one of you, if this situation comes up, that you seriously consider it, because I think that this room is full of people who understand all of both the negative and the positive about the Pacific Northwest and about Washington State. And I also think that each and every one of you has a tremendous amount of experience and knowledge and just intelligence to make Washington an even better state. People in California, one of the things, I've spent about a third of my life being a field man for a packing house and a warehouse. And one of the things I've always done is get in my car and go from home to the Mexican-American border down at the end of California. And in between, I got to know a lot of growers, and there were tree fruit nuts. I have a son-in-law down there who sells tree nuts all over not just the United States, but sells them internationally too. And he's just nuts for nuts. But he's taken me around and stuff, and you should drive down Highway 97 and see what has happened in California. You can drive for 1,000 miles and not see a single food-growing tree. They used to have pecans down there. They used to have a lot of cherries. They used to have just a lot of stuff going on, and it's all of that is gone. And I'm committed more than anything else in this job to keep working to ensure that that never happens here. Because if you don't have food, you don't have a future. And I think that we have a great future here in Washington State. I want to thank you for letting me share the day with you, and I hope we can do this more and more often. I really, one of the things I've watched in the legislature, and it's kind of a weird thing in a way, but I was invited out to the scientific part of the community, and I was allowed to attend a high school that operates on the reservation out there, and I have been amazed at how many people from Yakima County, how many kids have been through that, and I think that is just an example of one of the great treasures that we have here in this part of the state, and we don't always stop to think about things like that because they've been here so long and they've done so well. But I think they're going to continue to do better, and it's another priority I have, because Hanford really changed Southeast Washington forever. And so I always make sure that people don't forget that. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative Chandler. And finally, it's my pleasure to introduce Senator Perry Dozier. Senator Dozier serves in the 16th Legislative District, where he was born and raised. The 16th District spans southeast Washington, including Prosser and Walla Walla. Senator Dozier, a wheat farmer from Waitsburg, has owned and managed an irrigated and dryland farming operations in Walla Walla and Columbia counties for more than 35 years. He graduated from Prescott High School and earned a BA in economics from Whitman College. He serves on the Senate's Business, Financial Services, and Trade Committee as a ranking member, the Early Learning and K-12 Education Committee, and the Human Services, Reentry, and Rehabilitation Committee. He also serves on the Legislative Executive Workforce Poverty Reduction Oversight Task Force. That's a mouthful. Before coming to the legislature, Senator Dozier was a Walla Walla County Commissioner from 2009 to 2016 and served on numerous boards and commissions, including the Walla Walla Watershed Partnership, the Snake River Salmon Recovery Board. He later was interim manager of the Walla Walla Fair and Frontier Days organization. Senator Dozier's spare time passion is flying, and he has he has been a licensed commercial pilot for more than 35 years. He and his wife Darlene have 2 grown sons, Logan and Kyle. So please help me in welcome Senator Perry Dozier.
Hey, thank you very much. Hey, it's really nice coming here and seeing so many people. It's enjoyable when you get an opportunity to speak in front of a group that is so large. Actually, one of the committees that I said, or that I was listed as being on, Human Services, Reentry, Rehabilitation, I am off of it. I'm actually now on State Government and Elections. I don't like that any more than I did the other one, though. But one thing about being the last person to talk, thank you, Representative Connors, for giving me this cheat sheet. But since I'm fourth, I have been crossing off most everything on it, writing on the back, and crossing off almost everything on it again. So I'm going to try to touch on some things that maybe the other 3 speakers didn't get a chance to touch on. I'll start with a little bit of the Business, Financial Services, and Trade Committee. It actually has gaming in it now. This is a committee that I've been on for 3 years. I've been ranking member on it for 3 years. The first 2 years that I served on that, we had a lot of issues that we were working through between banks and credit unions and trying to get a lot of the things smoothed out and how they both operate. Along with the insurance, we also do a lot of insurance issues. And many of you remember during COVID, the issues that we had there where they were not going to allow your credit score to be used as a calculation for what you pay for insurance. And those, especially that hit hard, were the elderly that had really, really good credit scores. And once this was enacted with an emergency clause, those people saw their credit scores skyrocket, or not their credit scores, but their premiums skyrocket. We've heard some as much as 200, 300, 400%. That has moderated some over the last year or so. We didn't have any issues there going on this past year. One of the things that came up in that committee, though, was a fix for the B&O tax. Everybody hates the B&O tax, obviously, because it's taken off of your gross revenue. The option that was floated wasn't much better. It was called a margin tax. And what really caught my mind on this and my eye on this part was when they said it was revenue neutral. When you hear revenue neutral, you know that the state's going to get the same amount of money. That means there's going to be people that are going to win and people that are going to lose poorly. And unfortunately, the people that were going to lose, the businesses that were going to lose poorly were your smaller businesses. And we had this discussion in committee for probably 2 or 3 weeks, and thank God it died. It never, after a hearing, it never made it to get exec'd out. It has a lot of problems. I still think that we have to look at ways, tax relief, especially for our businesses. This is something that's been so important to me. And watching what COVID had done to all of our small businesses and the pressure that it put on them, and for them trying to come back. A personal experience of that happened was I have a sister that's over on the west side, and they had 2 restaurants. And one of them they had had for 5 or 6 years. It did really, really well. And so they decided to invest into another restaurant about 6 months before they were shut down by the governor. In that period when they were shut down, They completely lost the new restaurant that they were opening up. They ended up spending every bit of savings that they could to maintain what they had left in their own. And then on top of that, their unemployment rates went out the roof when they finally got to bring their people back. We had opportunities to fix that it was not fixed when we could have. Instead, we have high rates of unemployment insurance. This is something, again, that we have to work on. I also serve on another subcommittee. It's the Washington Tourism Marketing Association, or group it's called. And this is to promote tourism in Washington State, which again is very important. What we tried to do this last year, we weren't able to accomplish it, was get about $26 million put into promoting Washington tourism. And basically what it was a kind of a tax shift with more money going to promote tourism instead of going to the general fund. And if you look at that tax shift part of it, even though the general fund doesn't get it, if we increase tourism in the state, you're going to get it in another form of taxes, whether it's property taxes with expansion of businesses, or whether it's sales taxes. That's another way that offsets it. I was pretty happy this year after about 3 years. Some of you may be familiar with what I call the 9/10 economic development tax. It's 9/10 of the state sales portion of taxes that are returned back to counties. We had been trying to get that renewed, and this year it finally did. Now it will go until 2054, I believe, and which really helps our smaller rural counties. I know you guys are growing very, very well over here in Benton and Franklin County. I believe both counties are recipients of this tax. I know when I was a Walla Walla County Commissioner, this was something we were able to leverage for bonding on a lot of our projects to promote economic development. And it's something now that we're assured that it's going to be there till 2054. I thought that was really important for us to move forward. I want to talk about briefly about education. I also serve on early learning K-12, as you heard. There was a lot of money that went into special ed, probably not as much as what we'd really like to see, but we're getting a growing population of students needing special education. And by increasing the funding into it, I think it's been very, very important. One of the disappointments, though, that I saw in this was that we didn't spend money on learning loss by these kids based on the last 2 years of test scores that we have seen because of COVID. We had opportunities to spend money on that could have been unspent federal funding, and it was not spent on learning loss. There are 295 school districts throughout this state. I've looked at test scores on every single school district, and even test scores from individual schools, being elementary, grade school through high school, and see how each school is doing. And we need to do something better for our kids for the lack of learning that they have had, because that's going to be our future going forward. I did have a bill that I presented, well, this was my 3rd year doing it. I finally got a hearing on it. It was called a parental rights bill. And what it would do is it would have each individual school district on their website be listing the class materials, who's teaching them, if they have a guest speaker talking about a certain subject, posting the scores of schools for parents to readily be able to pull up and look at. Another part of that also was recording of school board meetings, that they would be held for 5 years. Many of us as parents, we have busy lives and we don't have the opportunity to go to a school board meeting, but we'd sure like to find out what's going on with our school districts and be able to listen to a board meeting. My bill did not make it past just a committee hearing. However, that school board bill for recordings, Representative Schuyler Rude ran that as a separate bill himself, and it did pass, so that part is there. Again, one of the things that I look at with that bill was it is a transparency of what your kids are learning in school. And if you were, say, relocating from Seattle to Spokane, and you wanted to find the best area in Spokane to live for maybe what your child, when you look at their education, maybe they excel in some special like ballet or music, that you could pull up each school and you could see how they're doing in each one of those categories, because you could live on the south side of, say, Spokane and have your and work in the north side, but you chose to live on the south side because that's the best school district where you can put your kids in. And that's why I think that transparency is so very important. Another bill I want to talk about is a really critical one for us. It's called it was an Omni bill. It's the Offender Management Information System. This is part of what is in our state penitentiaries. What they have here is a way to track the offenders that are in prison, and whether they're credited for good time behavior, bad time behavior, what their sentence is, when they're going to get let out, and it needed updating. It was finally started to being updated. In 2015, though, they found out there was a tremendous flaw in it. Over 3,000 felons were let out early when the system wasn't commuting sentences correctly. Over that course of time that they were let out, there were at least 2 homicides and many other issues that they had with these felons. I've been pushing for 3 years to get this pushed through, along with electronic health records that need to be in our state penitentiaries. They still do everything via paperwork. Can you imagine having to haul one of these incarcerated people to a hospital and you've got 200 pounds of paperwork to haul with them? That's exactly what's happening. That happened when they had to transport one on a helicopter and they couldn't take his records with them because it exceeded the weight limit. That bill almost made it last year, it almost made it this year, but it didn't get through again. A couple other things I want to talk on. I know Senator Schoesler talked briefly, said something about the Blake bill, police pursuit, and gun bills. These were 3 very contentious bills that came through the state legislature. Just to give you an idea of what we look at, this year there was over 1,600, and I believe there were 1,666 bills introduced between the House and the Senate this year. That's a lot of things to try to keep track of. The unfortunate thing is there was only 28% of these were Republican-sponsored bills. Most of those are the fun, cushy ones like naming Washington State the Evergreen State. And it's really difficult when you are fighting the battle, I think, over there when you're in the minority. What we try to do is on a lot of these bills, we may not be able to kill a bill, but what we can definitely do is try to put amendments onto the bill. And even that gets pretty difficult. On the Blake bill, that is the one for decriminalizing simple possession on drugs. And I don't know what the history of it, maybe many of you know, this was a bill that was voted on because of a Supreme Court ruling 2 years ago that basically we did a quick, 2 years ago, a quick bill on it to kind of fix it, which was set to expire July 1st. And we're trying to get stronger sentences. One of the things that was really disappointing with the Blake bill is when we got down to the end, originally, the Blake bill did pass out of the Senate with a bipartisan vote. I'm not sure what the split was totally. I know that there were some Democrats opposed to it, some Republicans opposed to it, but the bill itself was a fairly good bill. It went to the House, and this is when it kind of fell apart in the House. And then when it came up to the very last day, they couldn't get it passed out. That's why we went into the special session. One of the disappointing parts of the Blake bill that I think is there that we couldn't get on the Senate side is an amendment to make possession of fentanyl a felony, because we see fentanyl as the biggest killer now of people, I think, in this state and in this nation. And we couldn't even get it as a felony. And that has been pretty disappointing. When we went back to special session, we at least got a real close version of what came through the Senate. And we did get support from different law enforcement agencies, which is something that we needed to do. And it's not a great bill. I did vote for the bill, even though I was disappointed in some of it, but it did make it through. On police pursuits, this was a bill, I can't remember if I don't believe I did vote for it because of 2 issues on it. We had a lot of, when the bill was first passed 2 years ago, we knew we needed to get a fix on it. The two things that were left off of police pursuits were reckless driving and theft of a motor vehicle. And I remember having a discussion on the Senate floor when we were talking about the reckless driving part, because this is when that family outside of Sunnyside was killed with a wrong-way driver. When this individual that was driving that vehicle went through just east of Ellensburg at over 110 miles per hour, and law enforcement had to quit pursuing that vehicle. It got to Sunnyside, it went off the exit. When it went back on, it went the wrong way and killed 3 people. Even bringing that up on the floor, we could not get that police pursuits, reckless driving in the bill as an amendment. And the other one was stolen vehicles. We have record number of stolen vehicles in the last 3 years here in Washington State. It never ends. And that was another real disappointment, along with, I'll touch briefly on that, catalytic converter thefts. I don't know if any of you guys have lost catalytic converters, but yeah, it is a problem, and we had a bill to fix it, and they would not fix it. So the last one I'll touch briefly on is the assault weapons ban or semi-automatic rifles ban. This was another very contentious bill that I think we had on the floor. A lot of what they're banning are what we would call modern day sporting rifles, and some are even hunting shotguns that are semi-automatic shotguns that are now banned. And a lot of the proponents for this bill were people that don't even understand firearms, but they really feel that this is what's going to address mass shootings and make things better. But I think what we're really missing here is it's not the gun, it is the individual pulling the triggers. We have a mental health issue in across this nation. And that's really where this needs to go. We need to address the problems of why these people are doing that. A sane person does not go out there, walk in the door, and open up firing at everybody. It is a mental health issue. We've tried to address that with some funding for the kids, especially over the last 2 years, as we've seen our teens have increasing mental health issues. We try to get more counselors in schools. We're still trying to do that. But overall, that's where this has to go. I don't think we're going to see banning these guns as really what's going to quit these mass shootings. Not at all. I mean, we are so focused on that, and again, not looking at the other issues we have, whether it be mental health, whether it's substance abuse or fentanyl. We're missing the point there. I don't want to keep you guys any longer. Super happy to have this opportunity to come here and talk to you. Love to visit with you guys anytime. If anything comes up, please contact me. If you have any other further questions, there's a lot of things I'd love to talk to you more about. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you to all of today's guest speakers. So please join me in a round of applause, again thanking them for representing us. And I'd like to thank again Energy Northwest for sponsoring today's luncheon. Again, to our guest speakers, Representative April Connors, Senator Mark Schoesler, Representative Bruce Chandler, and Senator Perry Dozier. Thanks to the wonderful staff here at the Red Line Hotel and Conference Center in Pasco for hosting us, and thanks to all of you. Please join us, thanks to all of you for being here today. Please join us on Wednesday, June 28th for our membership luncheon. Same place right here at the Pasco Red Line Hotel. The police chiefs of Kennewick, Richland, Pasco, and West Richland will be on hand to answer public safety questions and concerns. And registration, just watch TricityRegionalChamber.com for registration. That will be opening up soon. And I'd like to thank you and wish you a really great rest of your day.